Good afternoon. Today's Monday, February 26th. It's still the 17th of Adar Aleph. We're in the year 2024, 5784. I wanted to give a quick summary of the very fascinating subject that we spoke about last night, and to clarify just a couple of points. I believe this probably could be done within 5 minutes, and what we concluded last night, where the topic was about Yishuv Ba'aretz living in Eretz Yisrael nowadays. Last night we concluded that in the times of the Bayis, in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, there was a mitzvah, a direct mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. We also mentioned that the Rambam does not list this as one of the 613 mitzvahs. Regarding the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, we pointed out that there was a machlokes, whether it's the Oraisa or whether it's the Rabbanan. We also pointed out that we learned from the Megillas Esther, of all places, the Megillas Esther, that the only time we were noheg, strange lashon here, the only time we were noheg this mitzvah was in the times of David HaMelech, Yehoshua, and Moshe. Now, someone would have to figure out how we were noheg this in the times of Moshe. I don't know what it means. But that is something that came from the Megillas Esther. But also, another time where there's this mitzvah of Yishuv Ba'aretz is we learn from the Megillas Esther, any time when Klal Yisrael has not been exiled from the land. That's when there's a direct mitzvah of Yishuv Ba'aretz. And the question is, what about nowadays? Nowadays we have been exiled from our land. So we have a number of different approaches. There is one approach that seems to say that we should not be living in Eretz Yisrael. The reasoning is hard to understand. In fact, the reasoning given is actually the reason why others say we should be living there nowadays. The reason given is because since there's a number of mitzvahs in the Torah which are dependent on the land, and we're not able to be mekayim those mitzvahs, therefore we're best off not going there. Now, the only problem with that is that we are able to be mekayim those mitzvahs, and in fact, that's the reason those that say we should be living there, or there is an inyan to live there, not a direct mitzvah of Yishuv Ba'aretz nowadays, but an indirect. They say because we want to do as many mitzvahs as we can, and there are mitzvahs that we can do there that we can't do in Chutz La'aretz. Therefore, there's an inyan to live in Eretz Yisrael. But the second point made, the second reason given for, according to the one that says we should not be living there, is that we're not able to administer the proper punishments. And I assume that's referring to we don't have a proper Sanhedrin, we don't have a proper Beis Din. I'm not sure I really understand the connection exactly, because I would think there is no chiyuv to do that if we don't have a Sanhedrin. Maybe he holds that there might be, and therefore we're better off avoiding Eretz Yisrael. The other reason given for not going to Eretz Yisrael is something which is a little bit more famous. It comes from the Gemara in Ksuvos, that it's a shvuah that Klal Yisrael made, that we're not to take the land by force, bechazaka, we're not to be kovesh the land, and therefore while we're in Galus, Klal Yisrael should not go there. And this has been a major topic at least since 1948, since when a strong argument could be made that nowadays the land was given to us without any force used. And also, even according to that, it would seem, according to the Gemara, an individual at least would be allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael and maybe even encourage. Okay, now let's go ahead and say the tzad, the reasons why there would be those that hold that there is an inyan to live in Eretz Yisrael, which seems to make the most sense to me, is saying like this. Number one, even though there's no direct mitzvah of Yishuv Ba'aretz nowadays, however, since there are mitzvahs that could be done in Eretz Yisrael that could not be done in Chutz La'aretz, and we want to do as many mitzvahs as we can. Therefore, there's an inyan to live in Eretz Yisrael nowadays. That would be reason number one. Reason number two is very interesting. It's because of lo sechanim, which apparently, what I assume that means is that when we have the land, we are not to give it away. Therefore, if we have the ability to live on the land, there would be an inyan for us to live on the land, so to keep it from being given away. I assume that's how lo sechanim is brought into this. We're not going to elaborate too much on lo sechanim, at least over here. There's a third situation which we also brought down. A person who's a tzaddik tomim, doesn't say the word tzaddik gamor, but it's tzaddik tomim. For that person, he keeps the whole Torah, everything. He's a tzaddik tomim. For that person, there's an inyan for him to live in Eretz Yisrael, because his avoda is worth more than double when he's doing it in Eretz Yisrael, when he's keeping the Torah in Eretz Yisrael. We also pointed out that it's brought down that anyone who's mekadesh himself in his daled amos of halacha, within the 6 to 8 feet of halacha, even in chutz la'aretz, it's as if he's living in Eretz Yisrael. He's living bebechinas Eretz Yisrael. For the final word over here comes from, I believe it's the Ramban. He says, Gam hayoshvim begoyla, also those who are living outside Eretz Yisrael are mekayamim bezeh the ratzon of Habore Baruch Hu. They're also being mekayim the ratzon Hashem. Machmas ta'amim v'tikunim gedoylim she'amru bezeh Chazal v'shar Sifrei Kodesh, because for reasons and for whatever the reasons are, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us exiled from the land. There certainly could be, according to many, there's an inyan to live in Eretz Yisrael, but at the same time, if you're not living in Eretz Yisrael, there's a tikkun gadol. There's a purpose. There's certain things that Klal Yisrael had to be misakin, had to fix up as a nation, which for whatever reason wasn't able to be done in Eretz Yisrael. That's why we were exiled. So he says, the kulam oisim ratzon konim. Everyone's doing the ratzon of their Creator. You could be living in, some people are living in chutz la'aretz. That's exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. That's where Hashem wants them. And the people living in Eretz Yisrael, that's where Hashem wants them. Elu ve'elu tzrichim shiyiyeh daitam l'shem shemayim. Both groups need to have their kavana l'shem shemayim, provided you're doing it l'shem shemayim. L'kaim shlichusam shenishlechu mehashkacha elyona. You're being mekayim, you're fulfilling your calling, as they say, your shlichus that you were sent down here for from the hashkacha elyona, from providence up above. So for some people, they specifically should be living in chutz la'aretz, and some people in Eretz Yisrael.